dear respected guests of Promised Messiah, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'du fa'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَأَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي إِنَّ رَبِّي غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Many years ago, there was a young, beautiful girl who got lost in a jungle. She was out with her friends in the evening, as she usually does, or did. But that evening, there was a big storm, and the friends got separated. They started to try to go back home, but it was stormy, it was dark, and she lost her way. As she was struggling and trying to find her way, she comes across a small mosque. And she walks in and she sees a candlelight and a young man sitting there studying. Now she's afraid, she's all alone, it's dark, and this is a young man, but there was no other way out, so she goes up to him and says, "Can you help me go back to my home?" This gentleman says, "Well, I'm not from this area, I'm a student, and my friends have gone to their homes because they're from the area. I'm just spending the night here because I have nowhere to go. And I don't know the area, I can't help you, but in the morning, soon there will be Fajr time, there will be people coming here and they can take you to your father's home." And then he said, "Well, there's my bed here, if you can spend the night on my bed. You can sleep there, I'm studying, and as I said, when there's morning, people will come and help you." Now you can imagine she was alone and he was telling her to sleep on his bed. But again, there was no way out for her, so she lies down on his bed all alone. Now, this was a very pious young man, but the evil passions, the desires, the natural desires that is in all of us raised its ugly head. And he sees this beautiful young girl alone on his bed, and he was about to succumb to his desire and wish. Now, we are all familiar with it, and I'm sure you've all felt this desire, these passions, these urges, and once in a while you may have been overcome by them, walking down the street, watching a channel on television, clicking something on the internet. We all have to admit that once in a while that we do that, and if so, then you're not alone. And if you're a young person, you've approached your parent and said, you want to ask something about it, and the answer you received was, "Astaghfirullah, what are you talking about?" Or your parents said, or your father said, "Well, let's not talk about this." Then you're not alone. We'll talk about this in a minute. And if you're a father or a parent, and your child comes up to you and asks some of these difficult questions about these sexual urges and relationships, and you're very uncomfortable, then you're not alone, because all of us has felt this way, and we'll talk about it a little bit. These natural sexual desires and passions, sometimes they're hidden and subtle, but sometimes they're pretty obvious and overt. Interestingly, mankind these days has become very permissive, and they want everybody to follow these desires to the limit, at no cost. They want us to do it and just follow our desires and no inhibitions. And this relationship or this attraction between man and woman is so strong, Hazrat Masih Islam called it like the Tufan-e-Nuh, the storm that came at the time of Noah. That's how strong it is. Sexual advances, harassment, illicit relationships, permissiveness, promiscuity has been around from the time immemorial, but it's become very common. If you read the news, it's in homes, families, workplaces, entertainment industry, educational institutions, sports industry, governments, offices, everywhere. Recently, there was this Me Too movement you've all heard about, where thousands of women came forward talking about what they've gone through. I came across a Pew Research survey that was conducted that showed the questions that were asked were, are premarital sexual relations morally acceptable, unacceptable, or not a moral issue at all? Morally acceptable, unacceptable, or not a moral issue at all? 80 to 90% of the Western European countries, including North America, responded that it is not a moral issue at all, or they are morally acceptable. 10% said that it is morally unacceptable. CDC conducted a survey, and they said that 40% of high school students have had sexual encounters, 40%, and over 60% college-going students have those encounters. So this is where we're living in this society. Now, this is so strong, the struggle between carnal passions and restraint, that Allah Ta'ala has put a story of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam in chapter Yusuf, where, as we know, Hazrat Yusuf, as a prophet of Allah, was a very handsome young man. And he was living at his chief's house, and his wife, chief's wife, Zulaykha, was also a beautiful lady. And she was attracted to Hazrat Yusuf physically, sexually. And one day when they were alone in a room, she made her advance. And Hazrat Yusuf obviously denied, and to the point, and it's so beautiful that the Holy Quran narrates the whole story, that he tries to escape, run away from the room. And Zulaykha follows, runs after him, and grabs his shirt, which gets ripped from behind because he was running out of the door. When they reach the door opens, and her husband is standing there. And obviously, Zulaykha puts the blame on Yusuf, that he is the one who attacked me, and Hazrat Yusuf denied. Someone came up with the idea that check the shirt. If it's ripped from behind, it is Zulaykha's fault. If it's ripped from the front, it's Yusuf's fault, and you know the story that it was ripped from behind, exonerating Yusuf. But Zulaykha and friends didn't give up. And Hazrat Yusuf had two choices, either to succumb to her wishes or go to the prison, and he chose the prison, and we'll talk about that. So, interestingly, his shirt, or his garment, we just heard about the garment, we'll talk more about garments. His garment came to the rescue and proved that he was innocent. So think about what kind of garment are you wearing. So what was inciting Zulaykha to do all of this? There is a nafs or soul in us which incites us to evil. And we know that the name of that nafs or soul is nafs-e ammara. We all have to overcome that nafs, that struggle, that desire that in us, and avoid following our evil passions and desires. Strangely enough, these desires are like a mirage. It is like a dead-end street. We do feel satisfied sometimes. For example, watching a movie or an illicit relationship, one may feel some satisfaction. Watching pornographic material, as Sadr Sahab, Bilal Rana Sahab mentioned about all of this, drug addiction, smoking, whatever else, there is some sort of pleasure in it, but it is not the ultimate pleasure. What it does, it incites more desire, which leads to more deviant actions, and ultimately this destroys both the soul and the individual. You know, Satan actually preys on that soul that is inside of us. So there is evil or Satan outside, and it preys on that soul that is inside, nafs-e ammara. It's just like a parasite. He comes over, the Satan, and then basically overcomes us and takes control of all our thoughts and passions. Unfortunately, the Satan is not very obvious. It preys on us in a very subtle and stealth-like way. A verse in the Holy Quran describes this. Allah Ta'ala says, "O ye who believe, follow not the footsteps of Satan." La tattabi'u khutuwati shaitan. Why are the words footsteps written here? It's because Satan is not seen. It's the footsteps. They're going to lead you to him. So he comes in a very stealthy way. So sometimes you will say, well, it will tell you it's okay to skip a class in school. It's okay to lie to your parent once in a while. Is it okay to smoke a cigarette? It's okay, once in a while. It's okay to be out and partying with friends and not tell your parents where you are. It's okay to go out. Well, what we say, and that's what Satan tells us, we know our limits. I understand. I know where I have to stop. For elders, it's okay to have lunch with a coworker. Again, we are professionals. We know what to do. It's a requirement of our work. So Satan is coming in slowly. It's okay to shake hands, hug or kiss a lady, because we're living in a society and we don't want to stand out and be prominent. These are the stealthy ways it will come and ultimately leads to the satanic influence that is out there. So this soul, or nafs-e ammara that we have, that is controlling us eventually, we have to overcome and move from point 1 or A to point B, which is the soul that struggles, that strives, that works hard, feels the regret and remorse. And then ultimately out of this struggle is born the nafs at peace, or the soul at peace, called the nafs-e mutmainna. Unfortunately, the nafs-e ammara, or the soul that incites to evil, is very strong. The verse I recited earlier, chapter 12, verse 54, وَمَا وَرِّيُّ نَفْسِي, it is translated as, and I do not hold my own self to be free from weakness. This is Hazrat Yusuf saying, a prophet of Allah. He says, and I do not hold my own self to be free from weakness, for the soul is surely prone to enjoin evil, save that whereon my Lord has mercy. Illa ma rahima rabbi, surely my Lord is most forgiving and merciful. So any of us who have faltered once in a while, who have scars and of weaknesses, we need to feel good for a second. A prophet of Allah is telling us that every soul can commit mistakes, is prone to evil. And so the question is, the answer Allah Ta'ala gives, illa ma rahima rabbi, except for Allah Ta'ala's mercy. So the question is, how do we get the mercy of Khuda Ta'ala? So that will help us, and all of us, as we go back on Monday and deal with this situation, how do we make sure we take Allah's mercy along with us so it helps us? The story of Yusuf alayhi salam gives us clues. What was the first thing Hazrat Yusuf did when Zulaykha approached him? He tried to escape. He tried to avoid the situation. And that's the first lesson that we need to remember. Avoidance of the situation. We need to close all avenues that bring evil thoughts inside. Our senses, eyes, ears. Eyes are particularly important. You know, we have an infectious disease specialist sitting here, I didn't realize, but the germs, how much we do. He recently tweeted about hand washing also. How much we do to prevent these germs attacking us. These are the evil thoughts. We need to protect us. Our eyes can be gateways. What we are watching, TVs, shows, reading books, any of that brings those thoughts inside and creates havoc and problems. So Satan can enter through our eyes. And that's what we have to safeguard. You know, in summer out there, we were driving, we were all wearing those sunglasses, protecting our eyes from ultraviolet rays. How about the Ghazze Basar eye shades? That's the term that's out there. The young kids sometimes joke around about it. But look at Hazrat Masih Maslam pictures you will see all around. Look at his eyes. His eyes are only half open. So how beautiful those pictures are. And that's where he's lowering his gaze. And that's what we have to practice. Sometimes people say, well, I have to walk around the world. How can I close my eyes? You don't have to close your eyes. But put those Ghazze Basar shades on the eyes, and that will protect us. Holy Prophet ﷺ said, fire is forbidden on that eye, which instead of watching is cast down when confronted with something that Allah has forbidden to see. The other thing is, Hazrat Yusuf and Zulaykha were alone in the room when the crime was about to happen. Avoid being alone. In that with male and female, we shouldn't be there. Holy Prophet ﷺ has told us that if male and female are alone, the third is Satan. Again, the same evil is coming up. So try our best to avoid such situations. For I think that if a male and female are alone on internet, the third is Satan also. In fact, if a male is alone with an electronic device, Satan could be there as well. So we have to be careful. We heard about, nikah and marriage. That's another way to safeguard. Another prophet story, Hazrat Moses, you may have heard, was traveling and came across a water well where a lot of men and the ladies, the daughters of Hazrat Shoaib were standing. They stood behind. Why do Allah Ta'ala gives us those stories? There are lessons in it. So those daughters stayed behind, did not intermingle with men, only came after they had left. And when Hazrat Moses went to Hazrat Shoaib's home, he didn't stay there alone. Hazrat Shoaib made sure he marries one of his daughters. Again, avoidance. The other thing is, illa ma rahima rabbi, getting the mercy of Allah. More we love someone, more those thoughts engulf our thinking, our time, our brain is engulfed for that, the person that we're loving. Eventually, we start to worship those. Our thoughts and passions are just like that. They become our gods. So we have to move from false God to the love of one true God. Now, this is a loaded statement. How do we move from the worldly love to the love of Allah? Because our nafs-e ammara is now our God, or can become our God. That's where Salat comes to rescue. Imam Farhan Rabbani Sahib explained it beautifully yesterday, that Salat is our rescue to that. The more we become regular in Salat, more we get Allah Ta'ala's love, who helps us crush all these evil passions and desires out of the way. And then if we are regular in Salat, we have to face Him 5 times a day. How can I have all those evil thoughts and ideas and act on them and then face my Allah Ta'ala again and tell Him, I'm sorry, I did that. And then go back and then go over and over again. Eventually, I'll get tired of doing those things. That's why Allah Ta'ala says, as Imam Sahib mentioned yesterday, Inna salata tanha anil fahsha'i wal munkar, that surely prayer restrains one from indecency and manifest evil. The other thing is that we have to make sure that our desires, these are natural desires, Allah Ta'ala has created them. You know, fire is there. Fire can be used to cook bread, but fire can also be used to burn. So we need to refine our desire. You have heard that statement, Hamari ala lazzat hamare khuda mein hai. There are most sublime pleasures in our Allah Ta'ala. So we need to transform these pleasures and learn how to do that. The other thing that Hazrat Yusuf's story tells us is the concept of istighfar. That's a beautiful tool that Allah Ta'ala has given us. It is like a garment again. It's a sheet that covers us, covers our weaknesses. But only that, it helps us overcome them. So, you know, if our garments are stained, if we have committed something, the best thing is put into the washing machine of Salat. And the way I see it, with the detergent of istighfar, you mix them together and out comes a very clean individual. So again, remember the garment issues. Think of what kind of garment are you wearing. You know, when we go out in cold, we wear winter clothing. When we are in summer, right now, it's the lighter clothing. Sports gear, all of that is to protect our physical bodies. But what about our spiritual bodies? Don't we need a garment to protect that? And that is the garment that is most important that I thought I was going to talk to you about. That is the garment of taqwa. Libasut taqwa zalika khair, Quran Kareem mentioned that. So think about the garment you're wearing. You know, the world is infatuated by these garments. The fashion shows, designer clothing, as was mentioned earlier. But we want to make sure that our garment protects our spirit. And that is the garment of taqwa. The more we stay away from evil, the more we offer prayers, the more we offer istighfar, our garments get stronger. The garment of taqwa, that of righteousness, gets stronger and protects us. This garment applies to both genders. If we do ghazze basar, lower our gaze, if we avoid free mixing, if we follow the injunctions of parda, it will protect us. That's our garment getting stronger. For our ladies, their garment takes a physical shape also, where the hijab and the burqa and everything else comes in. That's the same garment that's out there. Hazrat Yusuf was wearing a garment. You know, his garment physically protected him, but it was actually his inner garment, the garment of taqwa, that was protecting him. So let's make sure that what kind of garment are we wearing. Now, the Satan, just to let you know and be sure, be on the guard, is against this garment. He wants to rip it away. If all of us sitting here, if the garments, the physical garments we are wearing, if that's ripped away, how will we feel? And if somehow Satan exposes my thought process, the actions that I did in the middle of the night, how would I feel? That's exactly what he's doing. Allah Ta'ala says in the Holy Quran about Satan, stripping them away of their garment that he might show them their shame. That evil that is around the society is trying to rip all these garments away from us. And we have to make sure that our garments are so strong that it can't be ripped away. It's not all for the young and the youth. We as parents have to be responsible also. If we are teaching them decency, are we being decent? If we are telling them to make sure that your garments, to our youth, to our sons, that your garment of taqwa has to be strong, are there stains on my garments? And if they are, then the teaching is useless. The other thing is we have to be aware. One thing I would like to mention, we have talked a lot about youth, that we need to be appreciative of them also. We know that they're on devices and everything else, but they're still facing a lot of struggles in the society, and they're still steadfast. So all the youth and young sitting here, I tell you, thank you very much for trying and striving hard. Continue doing those struggles. Going back to the story of the young boy who was sitting, the young man, and the lady sleeping in his bed, she couldn't sleep. She was afraid, and what she saw shocked her. What she saw was, every few minutes, this young man would put his finger, one of his finger, on that candle flame and then draw his finger back. And then a few minutes later, he will repeat the same thing, and until all his 10 fingers were burnt. And then there was morning and Fajr time, and people came and took her to her father's place. She was still perplexed, and I'm sure some of you have heard this story, that when she goes to her father, he was staying with, or he was with Hazrat Maulvi Nuruddin, Khalifatul Masih Awwal at that time, radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. And her father related this story to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih, that this is what she saw at night. So Hazrat Khalifatul Masih called that young man and asked him, what were you doing? This young man said that I'm a good person, but seeing this lady, my natural passion and desire was about to overcome me, and I knew that if I do that, I'll go to hell, and I'll have to face the fire of hell. So I wanted to test myself, that would I be able to bear the fire of hell? Let me see, can I bear the fire of this flame? And every time I will put my finger on it, I'll feel the burn and draw it back. And I couldn't, I said, no way, I can't do this. And a few minutes later, my nafs, my soul will excite me again, and I'll try again. And that's how I did that all night. Khalifatul Masih, Hazrat Maulvi Nuruddin, was so impressed that he made sure that this young man and that girl got married. This young man was also wearing the garment of taqwa, a strong garment of taqwa. He was afraid of the fire of the hereafter. But my brothers, there is a fire that burns in this world. The lustful inclinations and all are creating a fire that is burning our souls, individuals, societies, households, our ambitions, our educations, our studies, our future, everything. Be very careful, because the fire in the hereafter is different. Let's worry about the fire that we're facing. So again, what kind of garment are you wearing? Hazrat Yusuf's story gives us another beautiful lesson. Allah Ta'ala is describing two sides of human emotions. One is the camp, or two camps. The one is the camp of vulnerability, which Zulaykha's actions signify. She is overcome by emotions and giving up or succumbing to them. The other is self-control and restraint. That's Hazrat Yusuf's side. That's the camp. And unfortunately, in this day and age, the camp of vulnerability, that of Zulaykha, is increasing significantly. We, the Ahmadi Muslim, the youth and elders sitting here, have to make sure that putting those garments of taqwa on, we increase the people in the camp of Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam. And we try our best never be tempted by Satan, because Allah Ta'ala loves this camp. Allah Ta'ala loves this camp who cannot be persuaded by Satan. Allah Ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, as to my servants, thou shalt certainly have no power over them. So Allah Ta'ala is talking to Satan in a way and telling him that my servants, you will have no power over them. Do we want to embarrass God, the Almighty? Obviously we can't. But our actions have to speak and tell Allah Ta'ala that, Ya Allah, main us group mein hu. I belong to that group that Satan has no influence over. It is our responsibility to give, my dear brothers, it is our responsibility to give this gift of garment of taqwa to the entire world. This is why Hazrat Masih Maud has come. If we are not wearing it, how can we give it to the rest of the world? If we don't look beautiful in this garment, how can we give it to the rest of the world? So we want to make sure that we're wearing it. Believe it or not, my brothers and sisters, you know that we are the rain, you are the rain that has appeared after 1,300 years of drought. There was drought of spirituality. Now we are here to reestablish the modesty, the chastity, the good morals. So our beloved Imam is presenting us as a model to the rest of the world. Here is the community. Look at that. These are true followers of Islam and the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Let us not disappoint him. We are the followers of Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam. His garment of taqwa was the strongest and the most beautiful and the cleanest. And he shared that garment with his followers. You have been listening to Hazrat Khalifatul Masih's sermons, where he's describing the Sahaba of Battle of Badr. Yes, those Sahaba's garments were stained, but stained with the blood of their martyrdom. We have to make sure that if our garments ever get stained, it's the blood of martyrdom and not of the evils of the society. Hazrat Masih Maud inherited that garment and distributed to all of us. He gave us the teaching in the book Kishti-e-Nuh that Hazrat Khalifatul Masih just told us. Read that book And if we follow those commandments, our garment of taqwa will become the strongest, and we can overcome any type of inclination, whether they be inside or outside. In the worldly view, Hazrat Masih Maud-Islam's garments or clothing was ordinary. But it was those garments जिससे बादशाह बरकत ढूंढते हैं. So my brothers, कि दुनिया की नज़र में तो हज़रत मसीह इस्लाम के कपड़े मामूली हो सकते हैं, लेकिन खुदा की नज़र में मामूली नहीं थे. वो कपड़े थे जिनसे बादशाह बरकत ढूंढते हैं. Kings shall seek blessings from thy garments. So chastity and control of passion is so important for Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ that he put it for us as a second condition of bai'at. Second only after shirk and believe in Allah Ta'ala. The condition reads, and remember, we have pledged to Hazrat Masih Maud ﷺ and pledged to our Khalifa on these conditions of bai'at. He says that he or she shall keep away from falsehood, fornication, adultery, trespasses of the eye, debauchery, mischief, and rebellion, and that he or she will not permit himself or herself to be carried away by passions, however strong they may be. However strong they might be. And that is something that we have pledged on. There are a lot of newcomers to America and to our Jamaat here, refugees and others. I want to make sure कि इस दुनिया की चकाचौंध से मुतासर ना हूँ. बिल्कुल मुतासर ना हूँ, क्योंकि this is really a dead-end street, a mirage. The word dead-end street really, truly means here. We have to make sure कि हम उसकी तरफ ना जाएं, बल्कि अपने लिबास को उन धब्बों से बचाते रहें. We can't embarrass our Khalifa by following our carnal passions and desire. We can't let Satan influence us. We don't want to become a number in that statistics that I shared with you earlier. We don't want to have those 40% and 60% here. We have to be very careful. We don't want to become like those who became prisoners of their passions and desires. Go outside and see. Hazrat Yusuf alayhi salam accepted prison. It was prison in the worldly sense, but he was the freest man alive at that time because he had conquered his evil passions and desires. That sort of freedom we need. My brothers, there's a lot of argument about global warming. And people say, well, there is global warming or not. There's discussion going on. One thing is for sure, there is intense spiritual warming going on these days. And you and I are responsible for that spiritual warming. And we have to make sure that our spiritual footprint is the largest possible. Carbon footprint is being decreased, but our spiritual footprint has to increase because we are responsible for the rest of the world also. So, कोशिश ये करें कि हमारे कपड़े ऐसे हों, हमारे लिबास तक़वा ऐसा हो जिससे सारी दुनिया बरकत ढूंढे, क्योंकि हम हज़रत मसीह मौद इस्लाम के मानने वाले हैं. तो मेरे जितने भी बच्चे बड़े सब बैठे हैं, my young brothers and elders and everyone, we have to make sure that we become role models for the rest of the world. Let's not follow these carnal passions and desires which lead to nothing except destruction. If we wear this, we want to make sure that हमारे कपड़े इस पे कोई stain ना हो. Our clothing, our garments are not stained. And if they ever get ripped, they rip from behind, not in the front. If we wear these garments of taqwa, inshallah, they will turn into the beautiful garments, the silk garments of the hereafter, as Allah Ta'ala says in the Holy Quran, وَلِبَاسُهُمْ فِيهَا حَرِيرٌ, and their garments therein will be of silk. Once again, what kind of garment are you wearing? وَآخِرُ دَعْوَانَا الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ.